Welcome to E-commerce with Coffee, a podcast powered by Amber Engine, where we share e-com secrets for brands over your favorite brew. We start with the caffeine and then leap enthusiastically into behind-the-scenes e-com insights that led to the success of our guests. I'm Nate Svoboda, and I'm about to serve you up the best. Let's get started. Welcome to this episode of E-commerce with Coffee. Today, I'm speaking to Daniela Bolzmann. She is the founder of Mindful Goods, which is a one-stop shop agency for brands and Amazon sellers that want to optimize their listings. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today, but we're really going to focus on Daniela's three-step process that she uses to help her clients optimize their listings. So Daniela, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and my chanchito.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really, hey, if he wants to make another appearance, that's totally fine by me. For our listeners, he's a really, really cute French bulldog. So, hey, pop over to the YouTube and check him out. Daniela, before we dive in, a couple of quick questions. So first of all, you are a very busy woman. Do you drink coffee? Do you drink caffeine? I imagine you have to have something to get yourself going in the morning.
I do. I drink fatty coffees. So I'll put a little bit of coconut oil and grass-fed butter and mushrooms and turmeric and cinnamon, and I make my own little concoction in the morning on most days because I do intermittent fasting.
Okay. Have you tried any of those mushroom coffees, or is that what you're kind of talking about?
I actually buy my own blend of mushrooms, of mushroom powder pills, and then I put it into my coffee. I just prefer to do it that way, but because I like all these other flavors in my coffee as well.
That's interesting. I'll have to see if I can try that out sometime because it does sound pretty interesting. I'm very, very bland with my just cold brew with a little bit of cream and sugar.
I love a cold brew though. I do those.
I am much more of a cold coffee person, personally.
Yeah, it's delicious. Cool. Do you make your own cold brew?
I do. I have this jar. Yes. I have to do it with the 2-liter one because usually, that goes in a day and a half. It doesn't last very long because I have to do it a few times a week. But no, absolutely cool. Well, Daniela, I know that during the pandemic, you went down to Peru for a little while and you actually got stranded there. So tell us a little bit about that. And before we dive into the business, what brought you there?
So my boyfriend and I, we both have remote jobs. So we're pretty fortunate in that. We're based in Chicago. We grew up in California. We wanted to be exploring a little bit more and live part-time in South America because you've probably heard the winters in Chicago are pretty brutal. So we escaped the last few years and went to Peru and, enjoy the beautiful summertime there. And what happened is they actually closed the borders for a period of time. So we didn't want to leave, or we couldn't leave. And then when we did want to leave, or when we actually could leave, we were considering, do we actually really want to go back to Chicago right now? Because it's going to be winter again. And it's summertime in Peru again. So we ended up staying for a year and a half, an extended visit. And that's where we picked up our little Frenchie Chanchito. And now we live with him between Peru and Chicago. We're actually headed back to Peru next month. So
man, that's crazy. So I can imagine you probably did not think you were going to be spending quite that long when you went there initially.
No, and we didn't think we'd be spending a Peru winter there. So we had no winter clothes. So imagine everyone else is very small in stature. So it was interesting trying to find clothes that fit us.
No, oh my goodness, I can imagine. That was probably pretty hilarious though.
Yeah, it was a really great experience. I wish my Spanish would have improved while I was there, but being isolated with Netflix in English doesn't help.
Fair enough. But hey, I bet you got to see some pretty cool sites and explore a little bit. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Very
cool. Well, so Daniela, you're an experienced tech founder, right? And you've done a lot of stuff in digital marketing too. So could you tell us a little bit about your career and, how you came to found Mindful Goods and work with Amazon sellers? What drew you to that?
Sure. It's kind of along the same note. I out of college, I was very entrepreneurial. I started a store-to-door logistics delivery business pre-Uber Eats. And we had a team of 20 employees. We were all young. We use the word hustle a lot in our environment, which I now associate with, toxicity. And after going through that experience and ending up burnt out, I realized that I wanted to do something that allowed me to be remote, that it gave me financial freedom in the future, and that allowed me to creatively operate my own business. And so initially I wanted to launch my own products. And I did have, a 10+ year marketing background. So when I went to learn Amazon, I got very fortunate. My family has a business in CPG, and they were already very well established in Whole Foods nationwide. And so I got to, approach them and ask, can I be the one to launch the Amazon channel? They said yes. And when we went through that with a multi-million-dollar business, I realized that if this is the challenges that they're having to overcome this, imagine a solo founder or an emerging brand with a small team. How are they gonna? And this is someone with a 10+ year marketing background, So I actually approached a number of agencies and was asking about their model and what they would be charging, my family to help us in that capacity. And I mean, every single bid came back at tens of thousands of dollars. And really the channel for them hadn't really been proven out yet. So it was a big ask. And at the end of the day, what I realized is after learning everything super fast and realizing that I wanted to do this for myself, there was a job to be done for other people to help them do this same thing. And so I started helping emerging brands. We started on a regular agency retainer, not in the tens of thousands, but in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. And we were doing full service. So everything soup to nuts. I mean, we had a team in a garage packing things for clients. And we also had a warehouse that we were working with packing things for clients, depending on budget. We were doing inventory forecasting. We were doing campaign management. We were doing everything you can imagine. And we started realizing that we were getting a lot of interest from more of the brands that we wanted to work with, but they couldn't afford our retainers, even at that lower rate. So when I started thinking about what are the things that brands actually need to get up and running to get from point A to point B, or what do they actually need that's in our core offering, we had developed a process for listing optimization. We have developed a team of amazing designers and creative directors. And so our team was already really well suited and really well positioned to just handle the listing optimization and help brands get off the ground running. And then they can work with another team to start doing their advertising campaigns. So that's when we made the full switch about the time that COVID hit. And we haven't looked back. That's what we've been doing day in and day out. We're actually just recently noticed by Amazon, and they acknowledged our work and put it into a case study of theirs for a guide on how to make exemplary product pages. So that's pretty exciting. And, because our focus is just that, I feel like we're, one of the top in the industry at optimizing Amazon listings. So
it sounds like you're basically saying you really are the igniter for a lot of these brands, right? You help them get to a point where they can start focusing more on ads and they'll be driven to a page that's optimized and going to be able to convert, right? So you're really that starting point, that critical starting point.
The starting point or the reinvesting point, because we do have a number of clients that have come to us and they have been on Amazon for a while. They sell well, but they're hitting a plateau. They're seeing new competitors enter the marketplace. They never had to invest in the past, and now they're having to reassess everything and move part of their budget from what was given to stores now into optimizing their Amazon pages to make sure that they can stay at the top and capture that business. So that's important on that end. And the other piece that's important on the other end is that for emerging brands, when they're first getting started, a lot of times you see that they will just upload whatever assets they have, and there's not a lot of thought put into what they're uploading to Amazon. And so that's the critical piece that's missing, is they don't know that they need to be SEO optimized. They don't know that images do sell and how to use them to sell their product. And so they do launch on Amazon and they get frustrated because they're not getting sales. And then they turn on advertising thinking that that's going to solve the problem, when really they're just throwing money out the door with wasted spend because your listing in itself is not converting. So
you're bringing people to a page they're not going to buy from, or they're much lower likely to buy from.
Right. And that's more often than not what we see. And so what we do now is, before we work on any project, we do what's called like a mini audit. And this is actually available on our website too. We basically look over the listings and go through our 3-step process on a video, so that even if the team doesn't end up working with us, they at least have all the instructions that they need to either execute it themselves or work with another team to get it done. And so about 20% of the clients that come to us, they just come to us for that, which is interesting.
So the question that I initially want to ask, so you have brands that are just starting to sell, so you're, helping them in an evergreen setting. And then you have some brands that already sell, so you're really taking what exists and optimizing. Is there a significant difference in the way that you approach working with those two types of clients in the sense of like your 3-step process that you keep mentioning?
The 3-step process is going to be the same. What's different is how we are applying it when we're making the update. So for instance, if you're a brand that's selling well already, we have to handle the listing with kid gloves, because we have to understand what's working and what's not. And we don't want to just refresh everything, because if you have that legacy indexing with Amazon, you don't want to just basically strip away all your indexing and not be found in search results and lose all those sales. So that'll happen for at least a couple weeks before you can be re-indexed and get all those sales back and be registered for those keywords again. So we don't want to do that. But what we will do is we will say, okay, look, your title when you set it up only had 6 words. We can definitely fit in a couple more main keywords. And from your keyword reports, which are, this golden trove of data that a lot of brands haven't dived into if they're not comfortable with analyzing their campaigns, we can see that these main keywords are converting best for you. Let's throw those into the title so that we can gain even more of that traffic, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about using the data that you have at that point in addition to any supplemental data, but it's so much easier to verify the data in that aspect. And then for a brand that's net new, we can basically just do whatever we want, right? Or a brand that's maybe not net new, but maybe was never set up properly and just not performing well at all. At that point, we just say, let's just rip off the Band-Aid and do everything at once, because it's not going to hurt your sales. You basically don't have any. So
exactly. No, and that makes total sense. So then, okay, we talked about SEO a little bit. And so it seems like that's really the main difference, right? You have the legacy, experience with your brand on Amazon. To your point, you don't necessarily want to completely hit refresh. So then talk us through the remainder of that 3-step process. Like a new client comes to you, they want to do the audit. What do you generally talk them through?
Sure. So it's really simple. There's 3 steps to optimizing an Amazon listing. And the way that I try to explain it, the reason why I try to explain it in 3 steps is because everything online is basically a conversion funnel, right? And so we have to look at Amazon as a conversion funnel. And from the stage that you're in, which there's always going to be 150 things to be doing on Amazon that everyone's going to be telling you to do, every agency is going to be telling you to do. But really in the beginning, there's setting up your listing, and the listing is comprised of 3 steps. The first step is getting found through your SEO. So that's a matter of just optimizing your keywords and putting them inside your listing. We can break that down further in just a minute. The second step is once you've gotten found in search and you're showing up in the search box with all the little, all the other main images next to you, how do you make sure the shoppers are clicking on yours over anyone else's and coming into your listing? And so that's a second step, right? So you've gotten found, you've gotten clicks into your listing. The third step is how do you get them to convert once they're inside your listing? So Amazon is rolling out other advanced features to help brands leverage conversion inside their listings. And there's a couple that we'll cover that I think more brands are going to be taking advantage of that are not taking advantage of right now. So those will be a couple bonus items that are not in our notes. We'll share for you in a minute. But getting found through SEO, getting clicks through your main image, and then getting people to convert once they're inside through persuasive copy, through persuasive lifestyle, infographic images, all the way down from your product images to your A+ content. So which one do you want to break down first? The first step?
Well, so absolutely. I mean, I'm going to ask this. If you think we should wait until after, tell me and we can wait. But so what are some of the things you most commonly see being done poorly by brands that come to you and start working with you before we dive into some of the more nuanced?
Yeah. The number one thing I will say is that most often brands are trying to use what they know, and you don't know what you don't know, right? So I can't blame anyone for doing this, but oftentimes when we look at a listing, it's under optimized in SEO because they don't understand that that's the research that needs to be done in the beginning. 80% of that work can be done in the beginning. The second thing that I see is probably the biggest offender is that brands will just use the assets that they have. And oftentimes it's just a product on white and it's not a very good one, right? A product on white photo, if they just upload it, and usually it's like a photo of the front, a photo of the side, a photo of the back, and if you think about that from a shopper's perspective, if I'm landing on an Amazon page and I can see just three images at the top, not the full 6. First of all, Amazon knows that you're not using the full 6, and that's part of their, considerations in their algorithm. So that's one factor, right? The other factor is engagement on the page, and are you creating assets that are interesting and engaging and getting shoppers to click and scroll through those images? And if I'm a shopper and I'm just seeing product on white and I can tell it's just a side and the back, and like, what interest do I have in clicking? Or understanding the content better. There's nothing interesting there. So I'm not going to be clicking. I'm not going to be spending time on the page. And that's the first sign to a shopper that there's nothing else interesting going on the page. So why am I even going to scroll? It doesn't even look legit. This is not for me. I'm going to bounce.
Okay.
Right.
So so it sounds like it's mostly the step 3. Obviously steps 1 and 2, I'm sure they're their own challenges, but like once you're on the page, that is where a lot of the problems start to occur. for
That's
our
huge.
occurring.
That's a huge part of the funnel if you get to that stage.
Yep.
But if people are not even clicking to come into your listing because your main image is terrible, it's pixelated, it's got lots of white space, so it looks smaller than everybody else's, there's nothing catching your eye, how are you even going to get people into your listing to get your product selling, right? So it's understanding the data and like, where is the problem? So if you look at your sessions on your listing, you can actually see how much traffic is coming into your listing. And if you have very low sessions, I'm talking in like a few hundreds, you can see that people are just not coming into your listing. So your main images probably needs to be worked on, and your SEO might need to be worked on. So I would go back a step in the funnel. Right.
So let's start there. If we're thinking about SEO, right? I mean, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but 66% of consumer searches start on the Amazon search bar, right? Mm-hmm. So how in any ways is SEO different, or should you be thinking about it differently on the Amazon versus a Google versus, any other marketplace?
Right. So I like to think of it as completely different customer channels, completely different search. Usually when people are searching for something on Amazon, it's warm. They already know what they're looking for. They're really going to decide between, the top 3 to 5. And so it's about understanding specifically the language that your shopper is using. So for instance, if I'm going to YouTube is also a search engine for video content, but the way that I'm searching is totally different. I'm searching for how to make fatty coffee, how to make tea, how to do this. Whereas if I'm searching on Amazon, I'm searching for this, specific green case by Heyday for earpods, and so you have to think about what are the things that people could possibly be searching for. And there's great tools out there that brands can leverage to help them expedite this process, that gather this data for you. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel. And so we always recommend a couple different tools and a couple different methods, right? One is doing a reverse ASIN. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, a reverse ASIN is basically analyzing the product listings that you put into the system. So let's say the top sellers that you find for something very similar to your product, and pulling the keywords that they're using and understanding what are the keywords most used on those listings, what are the commonalities between those, what are the low-hanging fruit opportunities that you need to put into your listing, right? So just trying to understand what's currently being used and why, and how do I apply that to my listing. And then the second step is really going a step further and putting in your own knowledge of your own product. So if someone's doing this research for you, you want to make sure that they understand all the things that they need to know about your product. So for a CPG product, is it gluten-free? Is it paleo? Who's using this specifically? What are they using it for? What problem is it solving? What do they use it with? What ingredients are in it? What ingredients are not in it? And all of those things matter in terms of search and getting found, right? Because people are searching for a chocolate syrup without corn syrup. They're looking for, MCT oil for this specific type of coffee drink that I want to make at home. And so it's understanding all of that language and going and making a list for yourself and going in a little bit deeper into that keyword research and finding all of those keywords related to your product that are very, very, very relevant, right? And building them into your listing.
I feel like I've heard of a number of different brands or agencies, I mean, whoever it was, where they will ask consumers questions about the product, or, hey, here's a product listing, what questions do you have about it, right? Is there anything that we aren't addressing that, you would be searching for? And then they'll take that and then put it in their bullets and descriptions, put it in their title. Is that kind of something that you see recommend?
We do that too. And that's actually a tutorial that we have. We're a partner agency and ambassador for PickFu, which is the #1 tool that I recommend for doing anything like that. That's before you even get started doing anything, right? If you're already selling on Amazon, that's a great asset. Just drop the link into PickFu. I think the tests are like $50 to $100. And you can basically you can target 50 Amazon shoppers and ask them what's missing in your listing. So you can make a list of what needs to change based on that. That's amazing, right? The other thing is you're already selling. What questions are people asking on your listing? What are people saying in the reviews? And then what are people saying in competitor reviews for products very similar to yours? And how do you address that up front inside of your listing so that people can get their questions answered almost immediately? So those are all factors of consideration when you're building a powerful listing. So that's huge. But the second way we use PickFu, which gets into the second step of the funnel, is with main images, which is super fun. So I think this is the number one tip that I think every brand should be doing on Amazon that most brands are not doing, which is optimizing your main image. Most brands think they have an awesome main image. It's a product on white photography. How much more in depth does it need to be than that, right? Like you would think it's just obvious, take a really high res photo on white and throw it up there. But the most subtle of changes can make such a huge difference. I'll give you an example of a brand that we work with called YesBar. And they're a phenomenal brand. They're in a very highly competitive category of snack bars, protein bars on in the world, right? Not just on Amazon, but their product is exceptional. It was already selling well, and they hit a plateau. And they came back to us and wanted to reinvest in their listings. So we did the whole thing, A to Z. But the only thing that we did up front was we isolated the main image. We said we're only going to update the main image first because I think this is an area of opportunity. The image that was uploaded had a lot of white space. So in search results, it was basically showing up smaller than the other competitors, even though it was actually bigger. And then it was pixelated because it wasn't a 3D render. It was a photo, and it had probably been degraded by Amazon when it was uploaded. And so what we did is we built the same exact image, exactly as it was, but we did a 3D render so you could actually read the text on the box to see that it was like vegan and paleo and all these things, right? We added a badge on top, a post edit is what we call it, on top of the box to show shoppers that there's 6 bars inside of this box. And then we blew up a close-up of the actual snack bar stacked, right? So you're getting all of these elements going on the page, a box at an angle, a close-up of the snack bar, post edits that you can read on top of the box. In addition, everything is a render, so it's bright and vibrant and popping off the page and looks super realistic, versus the old photo that is looking smaller, pixelated, whatever. And then we had a third variation that we came up with that we just ideated and said, okay, if we're really thinking outside the box, what's a third option that might be able to win against the original option? So we had a modified original that's better than the original, and then we had a new option. And we ended up finding with a quick pick-through test that the option that we made that was the better version of the original was the winning variant. So we uploaded that one. We waited 2 weeks. We checked the data. Click-through traffic had improved by 11.8% within 2 weeks. And so that's just one change. And imagine, that's a really small catalog of product, but imagine a company that has a larger portfolio of products, larger sales, and they've never went back and optimized that click-through traffic, right? If they could steal more market share just off of changing the main image alone, that would make a huge difference to so many companies. So that's why we make sure that step is included every single time, and that we actually use pick-through every single time to do it. So, and if you want, I'll share my pick-through code so people can get 50% off their first poll, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, feel free, go for it. You can either plug it right now, we can put it in the show notes. Okay,
cool. We'll put it in the show notes. I think it's, I'll find out the exact code in just a second, but
no problem. I'm going to write that down. Make sure we don't forget about it. That'd be great for all our listeners. Yeah. Well, so we just talked about a couple of things that a brand can do to improve their offering even before they launch, right? They can start, asking consumers with tools like PickFu about, hey, what resonates with you most? Figure out what are the assets that are going to convert, things like that. What are some of the other things that brands can do before they've even launched or early in the process to improve upon their offering? Are there any other ones that you'd think of, or did we already kind of cover the major ones?
Upfront, so repeat the question, sorry.
No, so, we've talked about some of the things a brand can do before even really launching their offering to improve it, right? Mm-hmm. They can ask consumers about how to optimize, what resonates most. Are there any other things that a brand can do before launching to improve their offering, or did we kind of hit the most important bases already?
Sure. So one of the things that you should definitely do is be checking on your offer in general, right? So looking at what are you offering in terms of case pack? What are you offering in terms of size, accessories, bundling? What is your actual offer, and how does it compare to everyone else out there? And how do you make sure that yours is competitive in nature? And separate yourself from the pack. So some people, what's going to show up at the top for Amazon and the way that Amazon is skewed in the search results is they're looking for you to be price competitive. That's like number one, right? They just want to see more sales, and sales is driven by price. So, but there's a lot of brands out there that are not focused on price. They're focused on being a luxury product. And so that's okay too. you're separating yourself from the pack in a different way, and you're going to have to figure out a different strategy for showing up in the results and driving traffic to your listing in that sense, right? But for the majority of brands, what they need is a competitive offer to show up at the top of search results. So figuring out how to differentiate yourself from the pack in terms of your offer, price, pack, accessories, bundling, all of that is super critical. And it's something that needs to be factored in as you're doing product development, right? Because
Got to make
to
sure
have
there's
to go
product
back
market
and
fit,
do
right?
that, to go back and do that would be a pain. But there's other brands that we've worked with that didn't really know. They were kind of like the leader in their category, and they were creating a new niche, so to speak, within the category. So they didn't really know what was going to be the right pack size. And so what we did is we launched 3 different pack sizes at once to get, an intro offer, and then get people, once they were liking the product, to buy more and more, right? So we kind of staggered it in that way. And we made sure that all 3 offers were pretty competitive, falling into like a $15 to $40 price point. That's important for CPG products specifically. So, but yeah, that kind of work needs to be done up front.
Okay, no, fair enough. So, okay, we've talked a lot about product page. I mean, we talked about the images, how even just the tiniest change can have a pretty decent increase, especially when you make that change across your whole product catalog. So with today's super audiovisual world, right, what are some of, and we talked through some of them, what are some of the types of product imagery that are considered most compelling eye candy, right? And maybe what's considered not enough?
Okay, so this is the part that I think confuses a lot of people if they're not a creative designer type of person. And there's so many different types of images that most brands can be utilizing. For instance, one that does really well on Amazon is an us versus them image. Another one that that almost every brand could consider is doing a coupon image. So an us versus them image is basically showing how your product is different from the pack, right? So on one side of the screen, it shows, this is our product. It has these 3 to 5 things. This is everyone else's products. It has the opposite 3 to 5 things, right? And so when people see that, the us versus them, it's in their mind saying, oh, this is a superior product. This is the one that I'm looking for because it doesn't have all this junk in it, or doesn't do this, So you're kind of like saying, we're better than these guys without having to say these guys, right? You're
Love
just
the
saying
psychology
like
behind
other.
that.
Yeah, you're just saying other, and subtly, who does this really well is a client that we worked with in the past called Super Coffee. If you go look at their listings, they have an us versus them, and the them bottle actually kind of resembles a Starbucks bottle, which is genius, right? If you go look at it, it's a great image. Maybe you can show it on the screen for later as a post edit on this webinar. But anyone who's listening to this podcast, go check that out. That's a good one. So there's so many images like that you can think through for every product. The challenge I think that most brands have is understanding which type of image is going to work for them and their product, right? And so we're actually getting ready to launch a mini course on our website that actually breaks down our entire process, but gives the templates of what are all the types of product images and how to look at how to apply it to your product. And it can be anything from a coupon image, a lifestyle image, a contextual image, how to use educational image. So for instance, a great infographic is, how to clean this product, how to use this product, how to, and how to use product is so great if people are getting confused on the setup of a product, if they're getting confused on any step of your product, maybe they come back to the reviews and they're saying, this product is getting clumpy in the bottom of my cup. Well, we recommend one of the steps is to shake it in a shaker bottle before you pour it in your cup. So like, those are the kinds of things that you can do education wise to make sure people are coming back and having a great experience and leaving a good review for your product. But that's something you may or may not know before launching, right? Unless you're already selling it in a different way, you might have never been able to get that feedback before. So, listening to that feedback and then making those images after the fact is great too. Another example is another one with YesBar, as they came to us and they said, we're changing the shape of our bar. We're not sure how best to educate people because people are used to our product. They've loved our product for years. What do we do? And that's just a simple matter of, same great flavor, same great taste, new shape, and showing people on the screen, it's going to be the same amount, same value, same formula, same everything. It's just going to be a different shape. So that's something that's so visually easy to show people. And it's such a simple image to help educate and nurture in that transitional process so that people are not confused. They're not leaving reviews on Amazon saying, I got a fake product, which everyone is terrified of getting, right? So anyways, yeah, we're going to outline all of that for people, and they can access it at mindfulgoods.co / launch ready is what it's called, launch ready listings.
Awesome. I think we're just going to need to get a landing page made with all of this awesome content. This is great. We'll have all of these links in the show notes for sure. But so, talk to us two more things I really want to get to. One of those being A+ content, right? It's eye catching. Everyone loves it. And the longer that you stay on the page, or that you can get someone to stay on your page, the higher likelihood they're going to add you to cart, right? Now, a lot of people think of A+ content as being really expensive, hard to produce, or you have to work with somebody or an agency like yourself. Talk to us a little bit about the value of A+ content. Can it be done in a cost-effective way? What are your recommendations?
Okay, so my recommendation is going to be kind of counterintuitive to basically what everyone else is saying out there. I think you should buck the boring modules that Amazon is giving you. Usually most of those templates that Amazon gives you inside of, there's like, I don't know, maybe 9 to 12 different options of what they say to pick for the designs. And then when you put them into your page, into your A+ content section, it ends up looking like a hodgepodge of like too much text. It's not styled to look like your brand. Customers don't get engaged with it. They don't want to read tons of text. They're imagine what their mindset is when they're scrolling down past the A+ content. Their mindset is, okay, I kind of like this. Let me go check out the reviews. So they scroll down the page. They get hit with a ton of advertising. And then the A+ content is your last chance to sell them, your last chance to convert. So it's your last chance to tell them the one thing that you have to tell them before they hit those reviews. And those reviews better, they better save the conversion at that point, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to try to engage people and get them to stop scrolling, you need to have content that's worthy of that, right? And so the strategy that we deploy on most of our listings is you can have, usually in every category, up to 7 modules is what they're called. Okay, 7, let's call them banners for that sake, right? Because some of the banners or the module designs that Amazon gives you is like 3 squares and then 3 paragraphs of text under it. We only use the one style of a big banner, and we don't use the text option inside of Seller Central. What we do instead is we create 5 or 6 custom banners in that tall size. So it takes up this huge amount of space. And what happens is when you stack them one on top of the next, you create this landing page-like effect that allows you to stop the scroll and really, really take over your page. And then we leave one module for a comparison grid if you have other products we want you to be able to cross-sell, because that's the only really functional module that Amazon gives you, because it's the only one that links out to other products. So that's a strong one. But the other ones, I would just say ignore them. And actually our mini course is going to break down exactly how we do it, as well as provide a bunch of samples of clients that we've done that for. And the reason why that's so important is Amazon says that section alone, the A+ content, lifts sales on average by 5% across the board. And that's considering all the brands who are not doing it well. So imagine if you do that section well and you really stop the scroll and get people engaged with your content again. That's your differentiator. That's such a lost opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to talk about the concept of building your moat, right? Maybe we can leave with that. But before we get to it, A+ content seems like a great way to show your brand image, your brand values a bit more effectively, right? And really not many people seem to be talking about Amazon storefronts and the value there. Talk to me a little bit about, how storefronts, A+ content, or maybe other portions of Amazon can be used for a brand to really tell their story.
Oh, this is such a good one. Okay, so anyone who wants to see an awesome storefront, to know what we're talking about is if you go to Google, you search for YesBar on Amazon, go to YesBar's product page, and then right underneath the title, you'll see visit YesBar's store. And that's how you see any brand storefront. Okay, for anybody that doesn't know. Most often, and to show you a comparison, if you go look at Kind Bar's storefront, what they're using is just Amazon modules, right? And so you land on a page, on a storefront page, and it's just a bunch of products. And when you land on this custom storefront that we did for YesBar, you're getting all kinds of engaging content. The beauty of a storefront is that it's the only space that Amazon is giving brands that is uninterrupted, meaning there is no ads for your competitors on the storefront space. They also are giving brands more functionality, and storefronts are given to brands that have brand registry. So it's not given to every product on Amazon, right? It's a step for Amazon to, help brands along and give them more functionality, and especially the brands that are investing in themselves and driving traffic to Amazon. So it can be a huge benefit in terms of getting traffic from Google to your Amazon pages and warming up, getting conversions from clients that are already kind of warm. The reason why I love Storefront so much recently is because of all the new features that they've been rolling out. One of them being background videos, which is not actually available on your product pages. A background video is basically a video that's up to 20 seconds with no sound. But what's cool about this is you can create animated videos that really engage with shoppers and help them understand your product better. So you can have up to 4 of those on a page. You can put your media mentions on there. You can mention your mission. Like everything is just so much more clean, and it's not complete control of the page in the sense that you can't just like design a custom website, but they're giving you way more tools than anywhere else on the Amazon platform. And so that's what I love about it, is watching all the new features that are going to be rolling out. They're also allowing you to have attribution on your storefront, which is really interesting. So you can see what's working, what's not, what's converting. And so I think this is a place that more brands are going to be investing in the future, because the product page is where you start when you're first getting started. You have to get that nailed. And then once you kind of understand Amazon and you're getting your traffic to your product listings and that's working, you want to start driving some external traffic. That's where you would really focus on optimizing your storefront and making sure you're ready to go there. So I look at them as 2 different phases of where you are as a brand in your life cycle.
So now obviously, Amazon is critical to engage with, or to at least consider engaging with in your channel strategy. But at the end of the day, a lot of people think that with the competition on Amazon, it's a race to zero. Or if you are a brand that stands out, has a differentiator, and really is successful, there's a chance that Amazon's just going to create a copy, right? I mean, that's obviously, I don't know if that happens more or less today, but that's something people still think about and have a fear of. So what are some of the moats that a brand can build in order to make sure that, they're not solely relying on Amazon as their only source of revenue? Or maybe are there times where they should only do that?
No. I actually never recommend just relying on Amazon, because at any given point in time, Amazon can shut down your listings. And it sucks to have to say that, because it sounds like fear mongering in a sense. Because you also, in most cases, probably should be on Amazon, given that most of the search traffic for online shopping is going to Amazon. But you have to be smart and protect yourself. And so, for instance, with my own products, I have my website, I have stores, and I have Amazon. And so I'm not relying on just one bucket. If they were to shut down my Amazon channel, we still are investing in our own store traffic. So that's the kind of thing that I think every brand should be considerate of. If you're dealing with CPG, Amazon is asking you a lot of times for basically an order invoice, right? Showing that what they're trying to prove is that you are actually the maker of this product, and that you're not white labeling it, and that you actually know what's in this product, right? That you're putting forth a trustworthy product onto the Amazon platform. So they want to make sure that people are, they're being mindful of where these products are being sourced and all of that. What happens is that sometimes brands are giving up the whole recipe, of like everything that's going into their product and all of that. You don't have to give all of that information. What they want to prove is that you are buying your product, your flour from somewhere, so yeah. Show them where you buy your flour and give them that invoice. So I like to caution people in that way. You don't have to like fully lift the hood and give them everything that you're doing. It's just showing them that, yes, I'm legit. Here's a photo of my hand holding the product. Here's the things that they're asking for. So, but in terms of protecting it in other ways, it's a competitive market. There's, you just have to be mindful of that and be creative on how you're going to protect it. I don't know. I haven't actually dealt with that myself. I've heard of stories of this happening. It's never happened to any of our clients, thank goodness. But I think that's because a lot of our clients are not dealing in white labeling. They're creating their own brands from scratch. And that's a really hard thing to replicate, when yep. people pour their time and energy into something that they believe should be in this world. It's hard to replicate that sort of time and energy in an authentic way. I think consumers are starting to realize that, especially when you're showing that on your A+ content, right? If you have a banner that has like, as a founder, here's my story and here's why I created this product, people are seeing that. If people are there's a camp of people that just will never shop on Amazon because they have it out for Bezos that he's the worst person in the world, right? But there's 66% of people out there that are buying on Amazon,
starting
right?
on
And
Amazon.
of those people that are buying on Amazon, a percentage of them are actually looking to support brands that are local, brands that are doing good in the world, brands that are creating things because they're a single mom, brands, whatever your story is, there's a way to tell it on Amazon, on your product page and on your storefront, and making sure that it's connecting with consumers so that they are able to see that there's a real person behind this brand. We've actually had people email us and say, I bought this product because I saw that you are supporting animal welfare, and kudos to you, for the two sisters who are founders who are reinvesting in animal welfare. And so people do notice and they purchase because you're actually saying, this is who we are, this is what we support. So that's a critical piece to make sure that you're infusing into your content, your brand story, that it's not just a generic, like, here's our product,
No, absolutely. And I think that that's very important, right? I mean, it's not even just about being on multiple channels, selling in multiple places. It's about the content that you're putting out there and the story that you're telling to differentiate, because to your point, it's much easier to copy a product that's white labeled and made in a manufacturing facility somewhere versus, someone whose values are really, really communicated through it. So it totally makes sense to me. Well, Daniela, this has been a fascinating conversation. I really, really appreciate it. Now, before I let you go get back to your day, where can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to, engage with Mindful Goods or ask you any other questions?
Mindfulgoods.co. That's the best place. There's actually a little chat function on our website, and that does come directly to me. So you're not talking to a robot. Or you can reach out to us on Instagram as well, Mindful Goods Co. as well. So either way.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, thanks so much. I mean, I really am looking forward to having you on for future episodes and more conversations.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of E-commerce with Coffee, powered by Amber Engine. If you haven't gotten your fix yet, be sure to get more e-commerce brand secrets on our website at amberengine.com. And don't forget to subscribe for more episodes.